G'day, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of EV and net zero insanity in MGUY EV news for Wednesday the 27th of November 2024. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you never miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. So it's been an absolute roller coaster ride for the last few days with all the Jaguar nonsense going on. Check out my videos on this extraordinary story of the rebranding of Jaguar, which seems to have been just a complete mental breakdown by the senior leadership team at Jaguar. They seem to have lost their collective minds. You know, the other thing they're doing, of course, apart from all this woke nonsense, is going all electric. And let's see how that's working out for them so far. Jaguar is buying back almost 3,000 I-Pace EVs due to fire risk. The 2019 I-Pace has been recalled 5 times for an overheating high-voltage battery. That's the traction battery, which if it gets too hot could go into thermal runaway and burn down the entire car. Excellent. The 2019 Jaguar I-Pace EV has already been recalled 5 times since May of 2023 due to the high voltage battery which may overheat and cause a fire. In spite of all these recalls, Jaguar Land Rover, aka JLR, still hasn't been able to find a permanent fix for the issue. So the automaker has decided to buy back 2,760 affected I-Paces. The trouble started in the middle of 2023 when a recall was issued for I-Pace vehicles that could face a thermal overload condition which would lead to a blaze. Owners were advised to park and charge the vehicle outside and away from structures until the fix. How convenient that you have to do that. I mean, that's what EVs are all about. Yes, right, convenience and practicality. A software update to monitor the battery pack assembly operational status for a potential thermal overload was implemented. In October 2023, however, the vehicles were recalled again because the previous repair may not have been completed correctly. In February, March and August of 2024, the I-Pace was recalled thrice more for the same issue. Finally, on November the 11th, the JLR Recall Determination Committee decided that the company will buy back the vehicles they have been unable to permanently fix. Here's a little question for you. How many of those I-Pace owners will ever buy an EV ever again? I would say about 0%. And so the reality of the mad EV mandates in the UK is starting to hit home now, with some long-standing car makers' factories set for the chop, which is tragic for the people that work there. Vauxhall's Luton factory to close. Parent firm Stellantis announces, putting more than 1,100 jobs at risk. The announcement marks the second notice of job cuts from a UK car maker in less than a week. Vauxhall will close its 120-year-old Luton plant in April, the parent company Stellantis announced. More than 1,100 jobs at the van-making factory are at risk, but Stellantis said it is hoping to transfer hundreds of Luton jobs to the group's Vauxhall site in Ellesmere Port, Cheshire. It is now in consultation with unions and employees over the proposals, which will also see it invest £50 million into the Ellesmere Port factory. The company said it would offer relocation support and an attractive package to employees who want to transfer to Ellesmere Port in the northwest of England from Luton, north of London. The company's managing director, Maria Grazia Davino, had ward closure was possible. In June, she told an industry event Stellantis production in the UK could stop, as more needs to be done to spur consumer demand for electric vehicles. We can see the other bit of news, related news. It is the second British car producer to announce job losses in less than a week. Just 6 days ago, Ford revealed plans to cut 800 roles in the UK as part of a cull of 4,000 jobs across Europe. So the reason this is happening is that in the UK they have this 22% EV mandate for this year, for 2024, and it increases a few percentage points each year until it reaches something like 80% in 2030, I think. But car manufacturers cannot afford to make more gas-powered cars than they're entitled to, because everyone above that, whatever it is, 78% of their total manufacturing will be penalised with a fine of £15,000. So the easiest way to avoid that kind of fine is to stop building petrol cars. They're not making enough EVs, they're not selling enough EVs, so consequently they're having to just cut down the amount of petrol cars they're building and selling, and hence job losses. And I think even the tone-deaf Labour government that has just seen a petition garner something like 3 million signatures telling them to call an election barely 6 months after they were voted in, which isn't a great sign for a new government, are finally starting to realise that their EV and net zero plans might be about to destroy the UK's economy and industry. Labour's net zero plans left in disarray after factory closure. Labour's net zero ambitions were in disarray last night after electric vehicle sales targets were blamed for the closure of a major Vauxhall factory. Downing Street said an urgent review of the targets will be launched in the coming weeks after repeated warnings from industry chiefs that they were putting jobs and investment at risk. Ministers are now expected to drastically water down the regime aimed at accelerating EV sales as part of the push to net zero. But the policy shift came too late to stop the owner of Vauxhall announcing plans yesterday to close its van-making factory in Luton, putting about 1,100 jobs at risk. Stellantis, which also owns brands including Citroën, Peugeot and Fiat, said it would combine its electric van production at its other UK plant in Ellesmere Port. The rules imposed to accelerate the transition to EVs fueled the decision, the firm said. Vauxhall vehicles have been made at the Luton site for 120 years. Local Labour MP Rachel Hopkins, she must be conflicted, said the closure was deeply troubling for our town, adding Luton depends on these high-quality manufacturing jobs to drive local growth and support national prosperity. Yeah, I bet she voted for all the net zero madness when it went through Parliament. See, you can't force people to buy cars they don't want. Every country on earth is discovering this. The US, the UK, Australia too. They're discovering that you can't force people to buy impractical, inconvenient, expensive depreciation monsters by forcing people to buy them. You can't do that. And so people are just saying, no, thanks, I'll just keep my petrol car or buy a used petrol car instead. Thanks very much. See you later. So battery maker Northvolt was supposed to be the poster child for how Europe was going to conquer China and become battery maker independent of all the requirements of China. And yes, it's just filed for bankruptcy in a major blow to European EV sector. But it's all going so well, isn't it? The Swedish battery developer and manufacturer Northvolt has filed for bankruptcy in the US as the company struggles with mounting debt after it was unable to secure rescue funding and was left with only 1 week of cash reserves. Swedish battery cell maker Northvolt AB, which produces battery cells for electric vehicles, EVs, has announced that it has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US. This is being seen as a significant hit to the European domestic electric vehicle industry, as the company was the most developed battery manufacturer on the continent. Northvolt AB produces lithium-ion, lithium metal and sodium-ion cells for e-mobility and energy storage, amongst other purposes. The company's flagship battery gigafactory, Northvolt 1, is located in Skellefteå, Sweden. Apologies for the pronunciation. The move comes as the battery maker struggled to secure rescue funding, resulting in the company having only 1 week's worth of cash remaining, which came up to about $30 million. In contrast, Northvolt AB's debt amounted to around $5.84 billion with a B dollars. Yikes. You know, all the supply chain is going to be suffering from these crazy policies. Because, you know, the manufacturers aren't placing the orders for the batteries because they know they can't sell the EVs if they make them. So the battery manufacturers are getting the rough end of the pineapple, as we say. Now we've got a couple of weather-related stories, one from the UK and one from Australia. Firstly, in the UK, it's extreme cold that's causing problems. Drivers warned of dangers around using heaters in winter amid car failures. Yes, that's because anything you turn on in an EV, be it the reading light or the heater or the air conditioning or whatever, drains your battery and reduces your range. So you have to sit there with the heater off, everything shut down, just in a woolly jumper, 10 layers of clothes, because you can't risk putting the heater on because you won't get to your destination. Electric cars could be more susceptible to battery failures during Storm Bert. Electric vehicle drivers are being warned about using heaters during the current cold weather, as it could significantly drain their batteries. The warning comes as Britain braces for Storm Bert, which is bringing in snow, rain and gusts of up to 70 miles per hour across the country. You know, it's really annoying that they now name all these freaking storms. They're not hurricanes, they're not cyclones. They're just typical Atlantic depressions, which we used to get every week or every few days in winter, and it's not changed. It's just that we need to make it sound scary, so we're going to name every one of them. Jeez. Experts have cautioned EV owners, particularly those with older models, to be mindful of how heating their vehicles could reduce their driving range. I mean, these things are just so convenient, aren't they? Unlike petrol and diesel cars, electric vehicles must use additional battery power to generate their own heat. In petrol and diesel vehicles, heat is generated as a byproduct of the engine running, making it effectively free for drivers, experts have revealed. It's hardly a revelation. However, EVs must rely on their battery capacity to produce warmth, which requires a substantial amount of energy and could risk damaging the battery. The additional power consumption directly impacts how far the vehicle can travel on a single charge, meaning drivers will end up spending more to power their car for longer. Brilliant. These cars are just such wonderful things. They're so much better than internal combustion engine cars. Not. And at the other end of the scale, we've got some heat here in Australia at the moment. It was up to 30 plus degrees Celsius in Sydney today. And of course, everybody puts their air conditioners on at home, which they're quite entitled to do because they expect to have, a reliable and dependable energy source, electricity supply. But we don't. So we don't have any reliable gas and coal-fired power stations anymore. Well, secretly we do, but what they really want to do is get rid of all of those and just have everything running on wind and solar. And guess what? That makes the grid unstable. So when there's heavy demand, it can cause blackouts. New South Wales Energy Minister Penny Sharp under fire after suggesting Aussies use less power amid heatwave and blackout woes. The New South Wales Energy Minister has come under fire for suggesting Aussies regulate the use of their air conditioning after AEMO, which is the Australian energy market operator, warned of blackouts amid a scorching heatwave. It's really not a scorching heatwave. It's just normal Sydney weather in summer. The New South Wales Energy and Environment Minister has faced intense backlash after suggesting Aussies limit their electricity use as blackouts hit the state amid a severe heat wave. Power outages have struck the Sydney CBD on Tuesday afternoon, that was yesterday, as electricity demand surged and major generation units at 3 of the state's 4 coal-fired power stations underwent maintenance works. Well, they might be undergoing maintenance works at the moment, but at least they're still there. They won't be there for much longer. The Australian energy market operator CEO Daniel Westerman confirmed to reporters the heatwave, combined with a number of major generation units that are on outage, both due to planned and unplanned maintenance, is causing tightness in electricity supply. Brilliant. This is what we've got to look forward to in this wonderful net zero world that they're building for us. This is another really interesting article. I won't go through the whole thing because it's quite long, but you can go and read it for yourself at the link in the description. This dispels that myth that EVs are so cheap when you go on a road trip, because when you're driving on motorways, EVs are incredibly inefficient compared to petrol cars. They use way more electricity traveling at freeway speeds than they do just pottering around the town. And charging at public charging stations is expensive. And as you can see from the headline, high mileage electric car usage is working out almost twice as expensive as petrol. What's promised isn't always what you get with electric cars. My 11,000 miles in Ford Mustang Mach-E proved it's far from an EV panacea. Perhaps autumn half-term week was not the best time for driving long distances in an EV on largely unplanned routes, but then family life is like that, full of the unexpected, joyful and sometimes sad. The first thing I learnt during 11,000 miles in the Mach-E was that it isn't a proper Mustang. Secondly, if you regularly cover high mileage in an EV, you need to travel when everyone else isn't to avoid queuing at chargers. Fortunately, now that my 3-month estual of fossil fuels is over, I'm able to use my Honda Civic Type R for long personal journeys, although the Ford is still pressed into service when work calls. This is the problem with EVs. I think I said in a video quite a while ago, but it's a point worth repeating, that a traditional petrol car is something that you have control over. You decide where you go, when you leave, how you do that journey. But if you buy an EV, the EV is in charge. It determines how you get from A to B. It has its little petty needs. It needs to be charged at certain times. It can only go a certain distance. So you are at the mercy of your car instead of it being your servant to do what you want. But it's so much better, surely. EVs are so much better. Ridiculous. And finally, just returning to the Jaguar story for a bit, this is a very funny video. It comes from a channel called Video Vibes and Verse. I suggest you visit the channel, give the guy a thumbs up and subscribe, and go to his channel to watch the video. I'll just play a very short clip of it here because it is quite funny.
Jaguar, darling, what the heck's going on? You seem to have forgotten where you came from. Focus on the future, okay, that's fair. But you may have just deleted any market share.
Anyway, there we go. As I say, go and watch the whole video at the guy's channel. It's very funny. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now.